There are 5 methods that will earn you over 10,000 G on the very first day and upgrade your gameplay to the next level. Animation canceling, clay farming, resetting, dynamic seeding, RNG manipulation. Each of these approaches go hand in hand and when combined can yield outstanding results. You may have seen animation canceling used before in speedruns, min-max runs, or even just casual play. To many, animation canceling might initially seem difficult to pull off, but with some simple methods and practice, this trick can be executed quite easily. Let's first understand how it works. When you use your tools, an animation plays out and you can't regain control of your character until it finishes. Each tool features a unique animation with varying durations measured in frames. The goal of animation canceling is to interrupt this animation, allowing you to regain control of your character earlier, essentially making tool usage significantly faster. To cancel an animation, you need to press the R, delete, and right shift keys all at the same time. However, for a tool's action to be registered, like the hoe tilling dirt, a certain number of frames must play out before you can cancel the animation. This aspect is what makes the technique a bit tricky, since every tool's animations last for different amounts of frames, so you'll need to cancel the animation at different times for each tool. The easiest animation canceling technique is the pulse method, where you bind all actions to a single keystroke. When the key is pressed, your tool is used and the animation is automatically canceled. This can be executed easily by installing AutoHotkey and writing a simple script to trigger the Use Tool key, wait for a small number of frames, and then trigger the R, delete, and right shift keys. Here's an example of a basic script that binds everything to the spacebar, so when the spacebar is pressed, the tool is used, and the animation is automatically cancelled. In my script, I've set the waiting time between tool use and animation cancel based on the hoe's usage time, since the hoe has a longer animation than the pickaxe and axe. However, remember that the number of frames varies between tools, so this means we could wait less time for our pickaxe and axe, but we can't modify the script's wait time or else it won't give enough time for the hoe to activate. This is why some players, particularly speedrunners and min-maxers, might not use the pulse method. A more technical alternative involves a simpler script where you bind the R, delete, and right shift keys all to the same key to be triggered at the same time. For this method, you'll need to manually use your tool first and then quickly press this key afterward. Here's a simple AutoHotkey script that transforms your spacebar into a combination of the R, delete, and right shift keys. Pressing the spacebar effectively triggers these 3 keys at the same time. When using a tool, you'll press the Use Tool button, which you can bind to any key but is bound to the C and left mouse by default. Immediately after, you can now press the spacebar to use the keybind and cancel the animation. This method requires some practice to get the timings right, as canceling the animation too soon will prevent the tool's action from registering, but you still aim to cancel as soon as possible. For example, when using the hoe, you need to ensure that the dirt is actually tilled before canceling the animation. The animations for the axe and pickaxe last less time, so you can cancel these quicker. These animations all take place in less than a second, so it really just takes practice to get right with each tool. 3-to-1 keybinds for animation canceling are valid in speedruns, but some prefer to use 1-to-1 keybinds, typically binding the R and right shift keys to extra buttons on the side of their mouse, and the delete key to the spacebar, which makes trashing items convenient. What are the benefits of animation canceling? Well, clearly it speeds up our tool use speed, and since we're constantly using tools in Stardew, it ends up saving us a tremendous amount of time, both in-game and real life. It also means that you can use a tool enchantment other than Swift, expanding your options while staying speedy. Animation canceling helps a whole lot while mining, chopping trees, clearing the farm, and clay farming. Clay farming? You mean to tell me there are seeds that grow clay? Not quite. As we'll see with many more aspects soon, most things considered random in Stardew can actually be predicted, including where clay deposits are. So clay farming refers to efficiently locating and tilling clay deposits to collect an insane amount of clay. Now, why would we even want to farm clay? To make tons of garden pots and fiber seeds? Later on, maybe, but for right now, we're focused on making money on day 1. A single piece of clay sells for 20 G, and by quickly farming lots of clay, you can accumulate hundreds of clay to sell for thousands of G. On day 1, when most other money-making methods are not available yet, this is a powerful option. To understand clay farming, let's take a look at Blade's Map Predictor. This helpful tool contains many features, but we'll be using the tilling mode for clay farming. By inputting your game seed or uploading your game file, the predictor will show you exactly where clay can be dug up. These locations will change every time we till the ground, so the clay locations will change every time we dig one up. Fortunately, there's a pattern to how the clay locations move every iteration, so even without using the map predictor, we can know where the next clay will be. The simplest and quite well-known method is the 6-4 pattern. This pattern is pretty easy to follow, and when the pattern breaks, there are some easy fixes to get back on track without using the map predictor. There are plenty of guides out there to help learn this pattern, which I'll link in the description. A pattern considered more complex is the 69 pattern.
69, dudes!
But this pattern fills in the tiles very nicely, allowing us to farm clay even more efficiently. This pattern is called the 69 since you dig up 4 diagonal rows of 9 clay, then 2 filler spaces, then 3 diagonal rows of clay, which fill in the already tilled space very nicely, and then 4 filler spaces, which make a total of 69 clay. After this, the pattern can repeat and will fit alongside the other tilled up lands nicely, allowing us to make efficient use out of the available land. I plan to make a more in-depth video on the 69 pattern and clay farming, since it really is the most important first day strategy, as it is what actually gains us money. The other methods are still super important since they allow us to clay farm much more effectively. To practice clay farming and learning the patterns, check out the clay map mod, which shows the locations of the next few clay in the pattern. So clearly, clay farming can amount to insane profits on the first day. Gathering 500 clay would sell for 10,000 G. This first day money is important in a min-max run to afford early upgrades and supplies that will further boost our clay farming. However, when possible, I prefer to acquire energy restoring supplies without purchasing them. How can we acquire more energy restoring items for free? An easy way on day 1 is from the spring onions in Cindersap Forest. You can guarantee yourself a good amount of these by recreating your save file, which brings us to the next strategy, resetting. In a min-max run, it's almost inevitable that you'll need to restart a day multiple times before getting it right. The extent to which you're willing to retry a day depends on the individual player, but in order to maximize the time in a day to the fullest, careful planning is required. Resetting a day can take different forms, sometimes tactical, or sometimes due to mistakes. That's going to require a restart. Mistakes are bound to happen during a run, but fortunately, exiting the game and reloading the save file will make those mistakes vanish. However, this also resets the day's progress for better or worse. It's also possible to reset a day tactfully. On a typical min-max day, I begin by running all over the map to see exactly what needs to be tended to, and draft a route accordingly. You'll end up saving in-game time by resetting many times until you get the day just right, but this does use up precious real-life time. Finding a good balance is critical and varies from player to player. Some mistakes can be lived with, but some mistakes are brutal and require a restart, especially during the early days of a run. Personally, I'm planning on going all out in my next min-max run and restarting day 1 until I get it near perfect. But that's just because I'm crazy, a perfectionist. As mentioned earlier, resetting can guarantee a higher amount of spring onions on the first day. Interestingly, the amount of spring onions is not dependent on the seed, but rather determined before the start of the day, or in this case for day 1, when the save file is created. So, to re-roll for more spring onions, you'll need to create new save files repeatedly rather than simply restarting the day. You might be thinking, wow, I really gotta walk all the way down to the bottom of the forest just to check for some onions? There is actually a much quicker method. Once you create the new save, you can use a text editor to open the save file, labeled by your farm name and then the game seed, and do a search for the literal string less than symbol which forage crop greater than symbol 1. and however many times this string shows up in the save file will equate to the amount of spring onions in your world. For example, here I quickly created a new save file, loaded in, then opened up my Stardew folder located in roaming app data, opened the save information in Notepad, then did a Control F search for which forage crop string, and found the term 21 times, which means there will be 21 spring onions. And making our way over to Cindersap Forest, we can indeed find the 21 spring onions. And yes, I really just got 21 spring onions on my first attempt on this random save file. Sometimes 0 spring onions will spawn, but sometimes over 20 spring onions will spawn. In my new min-max run I'm starting, I spent 3 hours recreating my save file and finally got 23 spring onions. They restore 13 energy each, and a tool use costs 2 energy, so essentially every spring onion is worth 6.5 clay or 130 G. Grabbing 20 spring onions has a total energy restoration value of 260 to dig 130 clay, selling for 2600 G. That's a whole lot more than selling them. Now, there is another trick to get some good items on day 1. We'll have to ask Linus about this method. Digging through the trash. Trash can items are determined by the game seed, which means choosing the right seed at the start of the game is important. However, this seed also determines a whole bunch of other things, and say we've already chosen a good seed for lots of day 1 forageables and a nice saloon dish of the day. These are more important than the trash can items, right? This is where dynamic seeding plays in. What if there was a way to change your game seed every single day, allowing for a different set of items from trash cans? Dynamic seeding allows for exactly that. Simply press Create New Game, open the More Options menu, and put in a new seed. But instead of creating a new game, press back and then load in your current save. The game will be tricked and create a copy of your save file with this new seed effectively loading into your current day with a new seed. So we can manipulate different items found in trash cans and guarantee some nice items, for example a geode which we can open for 20 copper ore on the first day. Oh, and that's not all. Everything predicted by Mousy Pound's predictor and Blade's map predictor can be changed with dynamic seeding. So say on day 2, we wish to fish, but aren't getting bites quick enough. Use a seed that spawns bubbles the entire day. Say we're traversing the mines and getting stuck on a monster floor, change the seed. Say we want to find good floors for geode farming right by the elevator, change the seed for that. Endless possibilities. And it is as simple as that. Just simply enter the new seed in the save creation screen and load in your game and your seed has been changed. How can we easily find good seeds to use dynamically? Good question. It's really a lot of trial and error by inputting different seeds in Mousy Pound's predictor and Blade's map predictor. The process can be sped up by creating Python scripts to automatically parse through a larger number of seeds, and I'll leave a link to Blade's code repository. If you'd like to learn more, check out the Do Crew Discord where there's a community happy to answer the game's more technical questions. Now, I should mention that these strategies may be considered gray area by some or on the line of cheating. However, it is up to the player to decide what they wish to utilize in their run. Personally, I will use all these strategies during my min-max run, as these are all either things that exist in-game or tools that take game information and tell us something. Anyway, one limitation of dynamic seeding is that it won't change the current day's daily luck, dish of the day, and next day's weather, which are all predetermined the night before. Dynamic seeding can play into manipulating these attributes for the following day, but we'll need a way to manipulate the RNG and control these so seeming randomly calculated aspects. Of course there is a way, but this one's not as simple. We'll be required to count our every step. Why is this? Well, very often in video games, in order to determine random events, they are based off of some equation that is dependent on certain variables. In Stardew's case, there is a wide range of variables, but the one that we can easily control to our advantage is the amount of steps taken. By entering our seed into a spreadsheet made by Cordite, it can calculate the number of steps we need to take on that day to influence the next day's dish of the day, daily luck, and the day after's weather as we see fit. So if we carefully count our steps, we can maximize our daily luck, make it rain every day to water our crops, and guarantee a desirable dish of the day selection. However, counting steps is not trivial. To make it easier, turn down all of the volume categories except for footsteps, which you should raise all the way up. Now every time you hear a footstep sound, that will equate to 1 step walk. For example here, listen carefully. You'll notice I walked 5 steps there. There are many obstacles to make our life hard while step counting though. If NPCs are walking by, we can hear their footsteps. We can also hear trash can noises both outside and from our inventory, the shipping bin close, and walking through tall grass and crops. It's also just plain tedious to count our every step, so it's best to try to pick a result that requires a small amount of steps walked. Say the next time we can get 0.1 luck, which is maximum, requires walking 311 steps. We will have to walk these at some point in the day, but on a normal Stardew day you can walk thousands of steps, so it would be nice if we could sometimes keep the game from counting our steps. As it turns out, there are some ways to traverse the map without ever incrementing the step counter. A simple way to do this is by stutter stepping. If we quickly tap a walk key rather than holding it down, steps won't be counted. However, this slows down our travel, wasting precious in-game time. Another way to sidestep the step counter is pause buffering. Essentially, if we walk and quickly open and close our inventory screen, steps will not be counted. This is performed by exiting the inventory screen, walking just under what is counted as a step, then reopening the inventory and repeating. This method may get exhausting. Although it should technically save the most in-game time, sometimes we aren't precise with our pausing, looking at the inventory screen can get annoying, and constantly pausing uses up a lot of real-life time. So a more palatable method that still saves most in-game time is animation cancel walking. This can easily be performed if we hold down the R, delete, and right shift buttons at the same time, while spam clicking the tool use button. This method won't work if you use the pulse animation canceling method, so you'll need to use the animation canceling method where we bind the 3 keys to 1. This way you can just hold down that key while clicking the tool use button repeatedly and the animation will just play for just 1 frame. This single animation frame interrupts the game counting steps, so if we trigger this ideally before every step, we can successfully move freely without counting. You can usually find a good rhythm of clicking while walking in a straight line, but will need to click a bit faster when changing directions. And you can use any tool here, and since the animation is immediately cancelled, no energy will be consumed. I usually find myself using a combination of pause buffering and animation cancel walking when I count steps. So there you have it, 5 advanced min-max strategies. Clay farming allows for the accumulation of massive amounts of clay to sell for tons of money on the first day. Animation canceling significantly speeds up this process and is applicable to other tool uses as well. Resetting is essential to fix mistakes and plan the day ahead. Step counting allows us to manipulate RNG to control the daily luck, dish of the day, and weather. And most powerful of them all, dynamic seeding lets us change the game seed each day to allow for desired attributes such as mine floors, geode contents, and much more. I'd like to give a big shout out to Piano Addict for helping me learn some of these strategies, and Blade and his really helpful videos and map predictor, and Cordite and his amazing spreadsheet calculator. Be sure to check out the Do Crew Discord where you can find these streamers. If you'd like to learn more and see these strategies implemented in a run, consider subscribing as soon I'll be putting these all together in an attempt to make my best min-max run. Besides counting my steps, I'm counting on seeing you in the next one. Until then, check out this video for some insane first day strats.